He just sent a message that we can get started while he figures out the audio issues.
Yeah. All right, sounds good.
That's no problem at all. So you guys are interested in e-collar for Chupie?
Well, I mean, because we did the board and training,
Yeah.
you know, and she started out pretty young with you, like at 2 months.
Yeah.
So now that she's approaching 6 months, and we wanted to kind of continue like advancing her training. So we're just wondering what would be your recommendation based on your assessment, because she's still there for daycare. So you've obviously continuously seen her.
Okay. I think that moving past the food training would probably be a good idea. So you guys are on the right track with that. Just so that way you have that reliability and consistency with you kind of wherever you go, any environment. That's the kind of, I guess, like quality that the e-collar can provide. For Chupie, she may, just because she's still pretty small and she's just approaching 6 months, we may need to go into prong collar first. So it's a little bit less pressure than the e-collar, a little bit easier for her to understand, so that way we can kind of start introducing her to the concepts of pressure on, pressure off, and everything like that.
Yeah.
But before I start going more into that, what are you guys trying to work on? Like, what's your goal here with this?
Yeah, because she's really motivated by food. And so she won't do anything else unless there's food around.
Yeah.
So we do want to move past the food training so that she would stay focused, you know, regardless of any distractions and things like that.
Okay. And then are you having like any other issues with her, or just focus as being the main thing?
Focus and the distraction, the leash pulling. You know, she nips, but really it's like playful. So we kind of want to like stop that in case if she's trying to play with children and things like that. So yeah, more of like the advanced things. And then we're obviously still trying to do the house training with her. She's gotten better. So she's not soiling on herself anymore when we do crate her overnight. But that's still like an ongoing progress for us.
Yeah, she's doing a lot better here with all that. So it's good to see she's making progress. Do you have any issues with like barking in the home, or her like chewing things up or anything like that? Like more kind of behavioral things like that?
No barking. The chewing kind of like it's in and out. Like she doesn't ever go out her shoes or anything like that. But once in a while, she'll go at the corner of a door. But that's not consistent.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay. My apologies. That issue. I want to add to what she said. Another thing that we notice is when we have guests, she will start gnawing on chairs, anything with wood on it. So she doesn't do that when it's just the two of us in the house, but every time we introduce someone new, she gets excited and she starts just chewing on anything with wood.
Okay. Yeah. You kind of said it a little bit there, where that's just her excitement building, and then she's not knowing a way to kind of release it. So she's just going for gnawing on chairs and other things like you're saying. Okay. All that can be addressed pretty straightforward with e-collar / prong collar, kind of adding more of an aversive instead of just doing the food, because with the food, it does a great job of rewarding her when she's doing something good, but it can be harder to stop her from doing things that maybe you don't like. And I know that I think that it's been briefly gone over with adding the physicality with like the touch or like the bonker, anything like that. That's already touching into the concepts of pressure training of what we do with like e-collar, prong collar. It's just kind of introducing it in like a softer way. So like the next step of like higher pressure, kind of more reliability, is moving towards the e-collar. But since she's still pretty young, Because you said she's going to be 6 months soon, right?
In 2 days. She'll be in 6 months. So we want to plan ahead because we are going to get her spayed at the end of this month. So if we do start the training, it will probably after she recovers from surgery. Yeah, but we just wanted to kind of get a head start and have a discussion, a consultation around what do you think would be the next training level for her?
Yeah. So are you familiar with like the prong collar and the e-collar? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So like I said, since Chupie's pretty young, we may have to do something that we do to transfer our puppies over to e-collar. So what we would do is normally we would start with just the e-collar. But for her, since she's still pretty young and she does seem a little softer, we may need to, for example, start her off on the prong collar to start to introduce some pressure without overwhelming her too much. So we can still make it happen with the e-collar, but if she's a little bit more sensitive to it, then it's best to ease her into it by first introducing her the concepts with the prong collar that's going to be a little gentler than just going right into the e-collar. But that being said, we can go right into the e-collar. It's just kind of dependent on what you guys would want to do and then how Chupie's kind of taking to everything. That being said, for the e-collar, are you familiar with like the remote and everything, like specifically like how we use it and all that?
We never use it ourselves. At least I've never used it, but
I've
you
never
know, I've
used
seen
it.
videos, read a little bit about it.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, you can think of like the touch that we do with Chupie if we're correcting her. You can think of it like that, but from like any distance. So we're able to apply that physicality anywhere Chupie is. So that's why we get things like the off-leash recall, off-leash heel, all those other commands, and how we're able to be able to make these things happen is we're still keeping with the physicality, but now we're just using this tool that's allowing us to introduce that from wherever we are. And the idea of the e-collar, same as the prong collar, is it's trying to mimic a dog bite. So you may have already heard this, but when we're doing any type of physicality with the dogs, like the corrections, the bonker, anything like that, we're just communicating to them in the language that they're understanding, that they're learning from their mothers when they're puppies. So a mother dog, if her puppies are bothering her or doing something she doesn't like, she's just going to go ahead and bite them to tell them, hey, stop that, we're done here. And when that happens, all the puppies understand, they all calm down, and that's why we like to introduce it here, even with just the touch or the bonker. So we're just taking that concept and just pushing it a little bit further with the prong collar, trying to mimic a dog bite. But the issue with the prong collar is, let's say maybe I do a correction on Chupie with the prong collar, and for me, I'm getting her to do it like, and I give her a 7 out of 10 for me. Well, maybe when you do it, your 7 out of 10 is different than my 7 out of 10. So now there's a little bit of mismatch, and maybe Chupie's not going to understand the correction from you guys as well, or from somebody else as well, who's not able to match that level. So the limitation there is just how much, I guess, like strength you're putting into it. So it can be a little bit harder, and it's a little bit more confrontational because Chupie's seeing you connected to the leash. Like she's seeing it as all one thing. Like she doesn't know that the leash is something different. She's just seeing it as you doing it. So it can be a little more confrontational when it doesn't have to be that way necessarily. And then that's why we kind of move over to e-collar, where you can use it. And let's say I've been working with her and her number is like 35. Then if you use it, 35 is still the same number. She's not getting a different correction. It's all very easily transferable. And then same thing between you or any other family members. 35 is 35 for everybody. So she should follow through no matter what for anybody. And then with our e-collars too, we have 127 levels. So that's just going to let us find whatever's going to work best for Chupie. So some other e-collars that are maybe a little bit cheaper or a little bit lower quality, they'll go from 1 to 10. And 10 is still as strong as our 127, but you just don't have all those extra numbers in between to be able to find what is working best for her. So maybe on one of those collars, a 5 is doing nothing for Chupie, and then a 6, now she's yelping and panicking. So with ours, we can go, maybe she's not 20, maybe she's not 25, but maybe she's 23. So that's why we like to use ours. They're also a more professional brand. So by the end of this, when I recommend like an e-collar to her, that's what it's going to be. It's going to be a Dogtra brand, 127 levels. It's probably going to be one of the smaller collars, one of the weaker ones, just because she's not having major behavioral issues and she's not a larger dog. So we don't necessarily need the max power for her. But those are just a little bit about the e-collars that we use here. Does that all make sense so far?
Yes.
Okay. And then the stimulation from the e-collar, another common question that people end up having is it electricity, like shocking them or anything like that? The way that we like to describe it, something that Jesse says is, it's an electric collar, but it's not sending electricity or anything. It's just, have you ever been to a physical therapist? Have you ever used the TENS unit used to like stimulate the muscle?
Yes.
That's the same technology as the e-collar. So we're just stimulating the muscle that it's touching, and we can control where it's at to where we can get it to a level that's concerning to Chupie, to where she's thinking, okay, I don't want the e-collar to happen, so I'm going to change my behavior. But it's not going to be so much to where Chupie's now freaking out, panicking all the time or something like that. And it causes no damage or anything like that. We've never had any instances where a dog has had any physical or psychological negative effects from it. Usually what happens is a dog will already be anxious or already aggressive, and the e-collar will end up bringing it out of them because now we're trying to tell them what to do.
Right.
Other than that, that's kind of the general idea of the e-collar. And then our e-collars have anywhere from 3/4 miles to a mile range. So you'll have that kind of consistency, even if Chupie, if for some reason, emergency situation, she gets away from you. Now, if you've worked on recall, you have recall in any of those scenarios. And then as for the behaviors in the home, that can all be worked on with the e-collar pretty straightforward as well. So sometimes owners will have things in the home that they absolutely don't want, and then they'll have things in the home that they just want to be able to say, I don't want that right now. So an example of an I don't want that right now thing would be, let's say Chupie was barking, and maybe you like when she barks for the added security, but you want to be able to tell her like, okay, enough barking for right now. Then what we could do is correct with the e-collar, but pair a verbal command to it to where she can still do it. But when we make that verbal command, that's letting her know you're done now. And after this, like, you'll reinforce with the e-collar. On the flip side, if there's something that you completely don't want, for example, like her chewing on the chairs or the table or anything like that, you can just correct that outright with the e-collar, nothing said, and then that behavior should just be gone. Because now every time she does it, there's no warning or anything, e-collar's going off. So then she's thinking, well, every time I chew on this chair, the e-collar happens. I don't like when the e-collar happens, so I'm not going to chew on this chair anymore. So that's how we would handle kind of the in-home behavior stuff. It's pretty straightforward. It's just kind of what you're looking for and how you would want to go about that. Same thing with the excitement. That can be easily addressed with the e-collar, because we would still correct for that with the e-collar. And what that's telling her is, this level of excitement right here is unacceptable for us right now, and we need you to relax. So we're kind of breaking her out of her getting amped up mindset, like, oh, people are here, people are here. And when we correct with the e-collar, we're saying that behavior of getting so excited like that is not okay right now. Not to say that she's never going to get excited again. It's just very context based. So if guests are coming over, you want her to settle down, we correct with the e-collar. Now she's starting to understand, okay, when guests come over, I'm just going to mind my own business, because if I get all amped up and then I start doing all these negative things, the e-collar is going to go off. So I might as well just relax and just do something else.
So it would correct for like jumping on guests and things like that. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. The jumping is a common one that we usually end up working on in some type of in-home session. Regardless of the program, you'll be able to schedule some type of in-home session for things like that. And that's something, again, where if you just want no jumping at all, we just address it outright with the e-collar. If you don't mind the jumping sometimes, but you want to be able to like cut it out when you need it, then we would tie some type of word or verbal command to it.
Okay.
But that's dependent on whatever you guys are looking for. But all of that can be handled directly in an in-home session. Whether you do in-person, board and train, or daycare and train, you still get the ability to schedule whatever you like in-home to deal with those issues.
So
any questions?
What package are we looking at for what you just described?
Yeah, that can be done with pretty much any package, since it looks like Chupie's stuff is pretty obedience based, and then just some general behavior in the home that you're wanting to address. It kind of depends on how far you're wanting to take the training. So for like your basic goals, are you trying to do like from all the way to like completely off leash trained, or are you just trying to get the basics down with the short leash and then address the behaviors that you're seeing?
I mean, I would like her to be off leash.
Okay.
What do you?
No, I agree. Ultimately, that's the goal, right? To be able to keep her off leash and have her become obedient.
Yeah. So for off leash, ideally, no matter what program, recall should be off leash reliable, just because that's our kind of emergency command. Like even if she's only done the most basic program, we need off leash to be reliable, because that's the command that is going to be off leash at some point. So either way, for recall, we're working towards off leash always. If you're going for full off leash control, like you want to be able to do heel off leash, all the commands off leash reliable, what we would recommend is going for more of the intensive programs, just because it's going to depend on Chupie as well, where she's at with the training, because sometimes we'll have dogs who finish the program and they're already ready to go off leash. Sometimes dogs will just need a little bit more practice because they have some issues or some inconsistencies that they need to firm up before they can be trusted off leash with all the other commands. But if you're looking for the most intense thing, that's either going to be the 12-week if you're doing in person, the 4-week if you're doing board and train, or the 20-day if you're doing daycare and train. So those are like the kind of top end programs working towards that complete off leash reliability.
Can you say that one more time? Like 12-week in person?
In person, yeah. In person is the 12 weeks. So for the in person, that's always going to be the kind of best type of program, just because we are instructing you and you're doing everything with Chupie right there and then, seeing her difficulties. Any questions are like right in the moment, everything's figured out.
So we would come in with her. And
So the way it would work is we would give you, as long as it works with your schedule, whatever time is scheduled, that's your time slot, and you get that every week then. So let's say 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. every Monday works for you. Then that's your class, 3 to 4 every Monday for 12 weeks. And you would go to, since it's the summer and the weather's looking nice, most of the lessons are going to be outside, just so that way you get all the experience of dealing with distractions, dealing with other people, other dogs, So we like to schedule everything at either Palmer Square Park or Oz Park, given that the weather's doing all right. And then you would go there with Chupie. You would have your in-person lessons with either Jesse or Enrique. And then everything would be gone through with you through those lessons. So like, for example, the first lesson, you would start to go over heel. And then second lesson, heel part 2, third lesson, recall, so on and so forth. And then you can kind of guide it based on what you're looking for. So maybe by the 4th or 5th lesson, you want to go over the place command. You can say like, oh, this next lesson, I want to go over this. And then that's what the lesson would be about. You would get instructions on how to practice that. You would come back the next week, go over what you were doing. Any progress or decline would also be worked through. And then you would continue learning whatever you need to learn, kind of more hands-on.
And then the next package you said was 20 days?
Yeah, so the other 2 programs that you could do, since Chupie is mainly having some obedience work that's needing to be done, she can go ahead and also be eligible for the board and train and the daycare and train program. So the board and train, you guys are already kind of familiar with it. Same idea as the puppy board and train, except now instead of doing the puppy stuff, we're doing the kind of adult dog stuff with her, where we're doing the training sessions with her. Throughout the day, all of our trainers getting in work with her. We're keeping her on, if she's still having potty issues, we can keep her on a potty schedule and everything like that. And then she's also getting everything that comes along with being here, how she was before, which is like play groups. She can do treadmill, she can do duration work once she knows the place command. And all of that is available to her still, the same as the puppy board and train program. And then for the daycare and train, same idea, except it'd be like you're just dropping her off for daycare, but now she's getting her training with everybody throughout the day as well. And then for these, you would get videos the same way you did for the puppy board and train. You get one video per, if you're doing the puppy, or if you're doing the normal board and train, you get one video per week. So let's say, for example, you did 4-week board and train. The first week is all of the commands on the short leash, her first session with them. So you're seeing her figure everything out for the first time. You're seeing how we would work her through maybe certain difficulties she's having. And then you're getting an explanation on what's happening, how you would practice at home, different scenarios, things like that. And then second week, you get all the commands, but now it's her first time on the long leash. So it's like proofing it more, seeing if she's going to follow through when nobody's by her, and just testing how well she's understanding everything so far. Third week, she does a session in the playpen now with all the other dogs. So all these dogs are playing and she still needs to follow through with her command. And then fourth week is a video at either Horner Park or Oz Park of her going through all the commands outside and seeing where she's at with everything. Maybe she's on the long leash and she can do good with that. Maybe she still needs a little bit of work on the short leash. Or maybe, let's say, we've had 1 or 2 dogs here that have just been off leash ready by the end of the 4 weeks, and they're able to go through all the commands off leash in the park, and it's consistent. So that's how it breaks down. And then it, how would you say it? It mirrors the daycare and train. So 5 days is the 1 week. 10-day daycare and train, it would be the same as like the 2-week board and train, and then 15 to 3 week and 20 to 4 week. So that's how that would break down.
Did you say it was also a 20-day daycare and training, or less than that?
Sorry, say it again.
What you said, 20, the third option was daycare and train, but was that also 20 days?
Yeah, so the daycare and train would be broken up 5, 10, 15, or 20.
Okay.
5 being like that first long leash or that short leash video and all that. And then 20-day being like all 4 videos and kind of similar to the 4-week board and train. And the kind of pros and cons of those programs are we can kind of make everything happen faster because we're all training with her throughout the day. And we know how to move her along quicker when she's having difficulties, because we've seen a lot of the issues before. So we know kind of the answer more quickly, and we can get her through the training pretty smoothly in that short amount of time. But the con of that is that you're not there for all of that. You'll see it in the videos, and we will obviously be upfront in emails and everything, letting you know how things are going. And you still get follow-up sessions that you can schedule, but we're kind of moving her through all those like initial beginning steps. And then the pro of the daycare and train over the board and train would be that it's a little more flexible with the schedule, because you can decide like maybe next week you want her to do a training day Monday, Wednesday, and then that's all you're able to do. And then the week after that, you can schedule, oh, now I want her to do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So it's a little bit easier to schedule, and you can spread it out based on whatever you're trying to do. And then both of those include follow-up sessions. So you still get that in-person time. It's just however you would want to schedule it. So it's not the repeating time slot of the actual in-person classes. It's you would get a certain amount of hours, and then you can use those hours however you please. So for example, if you did the 2-week board and train program, you get 4 hours follow-up. So then maybe right when you pick her up after the 2 weeks, you want to do 1 hour just on heel, just so you have something to work on there. We can go ahead and do that, or you can use 2 hours right off the bat. Some people like to just get all the commands reviewed with the trainer at the moment of pickup, and then they'll save those other 2 whenever they need them. And then another thing you can do is get all your videos, start practicing with Chupie, and then schedule your follow-up sessions as you're running into problems. So that way, maybe you're good with a bunch of commands, and then you're having trouble with recall. So then whenever you're ready, you can schedule a follow-up session to work on one specific thing, or you can schedule them as an in-home thing. So you have a lot of flexibility there for how you want to use your in-person time.
So because she's been with you for daycare, what's been your assessment so far? Is it generally around the obedience stuff?
Say the last part again, sorry.
Is it because you still interact with her after the board and train, and
Yeah.
she's there for the daycare? I'm just curious, what's your assessment so far of her?
She definitely could use a little bit more structure, kind of like the discipline to let her know like this is a time to settle down, or you're playing too rough here. We don't see a lot of the jumping and everything like that, because that's probably a more in-home thing. So sometimes that'll happen where they'll do stuff in home with the owners that they may not do here. So certain things like that we haven't seen, but I can see her doing that just because of her energy, like how much excitement she gets. But there's been no behavioral issues or anything like that. We've never had an issue correcting her where she's like lashing out or anything. So it really would just be teaching her how to manage her excitement better, and getting those commands down as well. Okay. So I think if you're trying to do like the full off leash stuff, you could do the full like 20-day or 4-week thing, or like the 12 person, but I feel like that might be a little too much right off the bat, just because you may be able to fix pretty much everything you're seeing and work towards that on your own without needing all that extra time. Okay. So, because one thing that we try and do is we don't want to give clients more than they're wanting, because we don't ever want to run into a scenario where you do, let's say you do a 20-day daycare and train, and then after 10 days, you're like, everything's good.
Yeah, I can stay on, so my husband has to leave.
I have to leave. Thank you very much, Elias, for your help and guidance. I'll follow up with my wife later on. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too. Have a nice day.
Bye.
So what would you recommend? 'Cause that seems to be like the extreme, but you're thinking it might be a little bit too much.
Yeah. I would say that for Chupie, bare minimum, probably for what you guys are looking for, if you were doing a board and train, 2-week board and train. If you're doing a daycare and train, probably 10-day daycare and train. Just because we can do the 5-day or the 1 week, and that can get you all the basic stuff. But it seems like you guys are trying to get a little bit more reliability and a little bit kind of more consistency. And once we're able to proof everything with the long leash, it can kind of give more structure right off the bat.
Okay.
And then if you were to do it in person, I would say 6 weeks probably.
About 6 weeks for in person. And then what is Jesse and Enrique availability like? Is that are they available for that more immediately, or is it what's their timeline?
That would be something that their assistants would know about better.
Okay.
Because I don't really know their schedule. They may have some availability open on certain days that are less busy for them. But that would be something where after this, if you're looking to do in person, then we could get you in contact with, I think Maria handles Jesse and Tina handles Enrique. So then they would send you an email. You can figure out a time that works best, and then they can give you an outlook on when you're able to start. And then if you do that and maybe you decide, oh, this is starting too late for me, or maybe you want to change programs, that can still happen. It's not like after the consultation, it's all decided. What will happen is you'll get transferred to Elizabeth, who handles the scheduling for all the board and train and daycare and train. So either way, you'll be in contact with somebody to help you with the schedule, and you can figure that out as well.
Sounds good. Yeah, this has been so helpful, Elias. You've answered our questions. So I'll just follow up with my husband and we'll kind of figure out what package to go with. And so do you think it's a problem because she will get spayed in like a couple of weeks? Do you think if you were to start, it'll be after her recovery?
I would. So she's getting spayed in like 2 to 3 weeks, or
yeah, May 28th.
Okay. I would probably recommend waiting till after the recovery.
Okay.
Just because that way you can stay consistent as soon as you start the training. Yep. Whereas if you start before it, there's going to be a small gap. It's not going to destroy anything, but it may cause Chupie to take a few steps back that we'll have to kind of spend some extra time maybe catching her back up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And then if was there a program that you were like more interested in, so then I can try and get you in contact with the person that's most likely going to be emailing you.
Well, we've been in contact with Elizabeth like pretty consistently. So I am leaning more towards either the in-person or board and train. Okay. But I just need to kind of talk to my husband to see if he's on the same page.
Okay. All right. Well, then if you've been talking to Elizabeth, I can just have her keep up with that. And then if necessary, if you do decide to do the in-person, then she can just forward you over to Tina or Maria to be able to set that up. Okay. And then for Chupie, the e-collar that I'll recommend, which will be also in an email that Elizabeth will send you after this. I would probably recommend the 280C. That is going to have 127 levels, just like all the rest. It's just one of the lower power collars because I don't think Chupie would need something more intensive than that. Yep. Worst case scenario, if let's say for some reason she's really stubborn and it's just not making a difference, we can always bump up the collar, but I feel like 280C should work fine for her.
Is there a name brand that we should get? Or?
Oh, sorry about that. Dogtra 280C.
Dog what?
Dogtra. Dogtra.
Dog truck?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then for that collar, you can kind of worry about that closer to when the training is going to start. because those are pretty easily available both on Amazon, on the Dogtra website, and then we're also a Dogtra retailer. So if you're starting up a program, like we can get you set up here as well.
Okay. So you sell it there too?
Yeah.
Okay. And how much is it?
I would have to look on the website. I think it's around the $100 to $200 range, somewhere in there.
Okay.
But it is one of the smaller collars, so it's not going to be as expensive as like the higher end ones.
Yeah.
So that one should be in a decent price range.
Okay. Sounds good.
And all of that will be
Do we need to also purchase a prong, or should we just purchase a e-collar?
I think that by the time the training happens, we can just go with e-collar for now, because if she was like, if you were starting, for example, before she's getting spayed and it's like right as she's turning 6 months, then I would think we would probably need to do some prong collar first. But what we can do for now, since it's going to be scheduled out like more into the summer, we can go as if we're doing e-collar right now. And then once we decide like the training package, if you're doing in-person, board and train, all that, then we can get her started and see if she's able to just go right into prong collar, because she's going to be a little bit older than she is now. Did I say prong collar? I meant e-collar. We can see if she could just go right into e-collar, because she may just be able to do that, no issues, and then we can just kind of start off like already there.
Okay.
And then worst case scenario, we start her off, maybe we're seeing she's having some difficulties, we can always take a step back, use prong collar, and then get her up to speed, move into e-collar.
Perfect. Okay, then I will, yeah, we'll plan for it, probably start at the like June 1 after she recovers and things. But yeah, thank you so much. This has been so informative. I appreciate your help.
Yeah, no problem. And then just be on a lookout for an email from Elizabeth. She's probably just going to let you know the e-collar recommendation, kind of go over the program recommendations, which I know you already wrote down, but it'll just be in the email.
Okay, yeah.
And then you can follow up with that whenever you're ready.
Sounds good. All right. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, no problem. Have a nice day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.